Here we go. Here we go. I think it's going to work. Come on, come on. You're live. You're live, Vince.
Thank you. Thank you. You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Go to the website and click the live stream tab at the top, or you can watch us live on your smart TV on YouTube at WCEG Network. I am Vincent Cheeks, your show host of Conversations in Education for the next hour. We are the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group, where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Last but not least, our disclaimer: the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guests and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. I think the last part is important, considering we're going to be discussing politics, and we want to make sure that that is not the radio show's stance on anything. Now I want to welcome my very special guest, Miss Valencia Stovall. Welcome, ma'am. Sorry, Rep. Valencia Stovall. Welcome back, ma'am. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Vincent, so much. And of course, WCEG Network for this opportunity to come back for part two.
Part two. I'm looking forward to it. Now, last time I told the people you were an entrepreneur turned politician. You've been in politics for over 30 years.
Oh, no. I've been in politics for about 8 years.
8 years.
Now,
okay.
Yeah, as an elected official, but followed my dad around, I guess you could say maybe 30 years. I give that much because that's about how long he's been involved with different people in elected positions across the state. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know we're in the home stretch of the election. And as I said before, you are running for state Senate, correct?
U.S. Senate.
U.S.
Washington, D.C.
Yes. U.S. Senate. Mm-hmm. And how's the campaign going?
It's coming along good. It's always a challenge when you start getting towards those last week of the campaign. Everybody's anxious. And we just continue to push the word out about the campaign as to why I'm the best qualified candidate in that special election for the U.S. Senate race.
Well, thank you for leading me into my next question. I went and voted today. I don't know if everyone can see my shirt.
Yay!
This sticker means I voted. This sticker means tell 3 friends to vote. So I'm telling all of our listening audience to make sure you get out and vote. I went to South DeKalb Mall. I was in and out in about 5 minutes. So make sure you go and make sure you cast your votes, not only for you, but for your ancestors, and to make sure that your voice is heard. Ms. Stovall, so when I voted, I noticed that there were roughly 20 candidates for U.S. Senate, correct?
That's correct. It's actually total 21, but yeah, you saw 20 names.
Okay. So could you please tell our listening audience why you are the one that should be chosen for the U.S. Senate seat out of these 20 candidates?
Definitely. So with Valencia Stovall, you get the best of 3 worlds. Because I have 8-30-30. There's 8 years experience as a state legislator, nonpartisan leader. I have 30 years as a small business owner, so I understand the plight of our small businesses. And I have 30 years of bringing community resources to those areas that are in need. And when you talk about as a U.S. Senator, and I'm running as an independent, so I'm not beholden to a particular party because the issues we're facing, we've been placing bandages over those issues, but we have to have a real solution. And these issues are not Democratic issues. They're not Republican issues. They are people issues. And that's why you need someone who's going to Washington, D.C., looking out for the people and not for the party.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I don't know if I told you this before, but I've nicknamed you the people's politician. And
I call you the people's elected official.
You the people's elected official?
Yes.
Elected official. I like that much better than politician. But so you are in a race of about 20 people. My next question is, why did you decide to run as an independent?
A very good question. So here in America, as you know, we have two major party systems. And these
Yeah.
major party systems are the ones that decide everything that's going to happen in America. More specifically, let's break it down to Georgia. They're the ones that decide what's going to happen here in Georgia. And so that kind of leaves out those people that don't particularly agree 100% with either party. You're kind of left out. And when I decided right now, currently I am slated as a Democrat, been a Democratic state representative for the 8 years that I have served. And in that, I have seen a lot of party politics that happens when you don't agree with the party, that you're ostracized, you're talked about really bad, you're not supported on your legislation, even though it's good legislation that can really help the people that you were elected to serve. And this happens not only on the Democratic side, but it happens on the Republican side as well. And so I decided if I'm going to decide to seek this position as a candidate for the U.S. Senate race, then I want to be a champion for all Georgians, not a champion for a specific party. Because these issues, you know, we're facing, you can't get stuck with party politics. And when you look at what's happening in Washington, D.C., why we don't have the next round of stimulus funds, why we don't have a lot more resources coming down to our community. It's stuck between the two parties. Somebody wants to have a win. And when anytime someone wants to have a win, somebody else is going to lose. Why is it that we can't all have a win?
Right.
And so that's why I decided to run as an independent.
Okay. Well, I can definitely appreciate that, because I don't agree with the two-party system, and I don't like the way it's forced on the American public. Like those are the only two options you have, because I mean, I know there are quite a few other third-party candidates, and the only one I've even heard of outside of the two main ones is Jo Jorgensen. She's a female candidate, and but I've read very little about her. So it seems to me that the powers that be are trying to steer people in either this.
Oh, most definitely. I can tell you that's exactly what has happened in this race. Last week we had the debate, which was the biggest debate that you usually have in Georgia, the Atlanta Press Club. And on that debate, they decided to split the debate up because it was so many candidates.
Okay.
Now, number one, they knew how many candidates it was going to be when we qualified in March. So it was not a surprise. And so they decided to use the polling to decide which candidates were going to be on which set of debates.
Okay.
And you had to poll at least 3% out of, I think, 3 pollings that were done. Okay. Now, let me tell you the trick with the pollings. When you pick up the phone or they're asking you a question about who you're going to vote for, they never list all the candidates' names. They only pick and choose the candidates that you've seen the most on TV. And even when you tell them, okay, I want to vote for Valencia Stovall, they say, oh, we don't have her name on the list. So you got to choose one of the other candidates. So you're forcing the people that you're polling to choose one of the candidates that you put on the poll.
Right.
And so, of course, I never poll because you're not allowing my name to be listed. You're not even putting my name out there as a choice. And then with another poll, once they were able to say my name, the next question, my name wasn't even included in the next question as to why you think this person, why are you going to vote for this person? They just excluded my name from the next round, next set of those polls. So I sent a letter to Atlanta Press Club before the debate.
Okay.
And I expressed to them how unfair it was and that was voter suppression. You know, many times we hear about voter suppression and we think it has to do with a race. But in this case, race, when I say color race. But in this case, it has to do with fairness in voting. And when you don't put all the candidates out there so the people can fairly choose, and those candidates that had the most money they raised from out of state, it wasn't money they raised in state. So they had to put more commercials on the TV, on the radio. They had to send out 5 or 6 or 7, 8 mailers to your household. And so now you're trained and conditioning your mind, unless you're an educated voter, that this must be the best person because they're the ones on people I see.
Right,
And so,
right.
But they never tell you exactly what they're gonna do. They never talk about the experience they have, and that goes back to why I said I'm the best qualified. The top people that are in the running don't have the three characteristics of benefits that I have that I'm bringing to the table. In no way. I'm the only current state representative that's running, current state elected official running in the entire race out of the 20 candidates. And so I'm most current when it comes down to what the issues are that are here. And so because I didn't have the money to be able to do all these commercials, I was able to do a few commercials on TV, on radio, but most of it has been through organizations like WCEG and other radio stations and people's word of mouth, that I've been able to get it out. So those polls are biased. Don't y'all believe all that what you hear in those polls. They are subconsciously getting you to be to vote or support one particular person. But until you go and research it for yourself and you find out who's the best candidate, not by what you see somebody on there because they have they're telling you they're the best, they're the candidate you should choose. Another thing, be a loyal to a party. Now, let me break this down to you. I'm going to go kind of quickly.
Okay.
So you have the Democratic Party that has other Democratic candidates in the race. But you have the Democratic Party of Georgia and the National Senate, Democratic National Senate Committee. They have already said who they're going to choose that they think should be the U.S. Senate. So they put all their muscles and resources behind this one candidate that never been elected to anything, going to the third highest seat in the United States. The Senate is the third highest seat. So you don't want anybody going there with some training wheels and trying to figure out what they're going to do and fall off the bicycle.
Right.
But they ignored the other Democrats that's in the race. So when I have people that are my colleagues and others that say, Valencia, why you didn't run as a Democrat? I said, that's the exact reason why. I said, how did they overlook 93 other Democrats that are state elected officials at the state capitol? You mean to tell me none of them were qualified to be able to run in this particular race? In either one of the Senate races. You still, in both of them, you don't have anybody that's a current state elected official.
Okay.
So those things that people have to look at, why did they choose this particular person and put all this money behind that particular person and ignore all the other Democrats in the race, which they're not supposed to do. They're supposed to let each Democrat run on their own without any other heavy influence. And then they threatened the other Democrat to tell him, the other two, to get out the race and that they should support the one that they're supporting.
Really?
Yes.
It sounds like it's a lot of politics in politics.
Oh, yes, it is. A lot of inside dark, behind the scenes politics is going on. So my message to the voters and those who are listening is do your homework, investigate, research the candidates, and you look for someone that you see that has the experience, that you know is not going to be afraid to fight for the things that they know that's right. I have that experience. I've had to fight a whole lot of times down at the state capitol, like the $45 million that I brought back to my county so that the local taxes would not increase. And this was done as a Democrat up on the Republican controlled legislature. And so, but that's because I worked to have good working relationships with those Republicans across the aisle. I didn't have to compromise my morals to do anything. I didn't have to do anything that wasn't right. I stood for who I was, who I am, and said, this is the need that I have in my community. And I supported other measures that have put me on that tilting line when it comes like with education. When it comes with the Democratic Party, we definitely differ on two different aisles when it comes to that.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because something you said, and Penny reminded me of my famous word I like to use, politics. So how do you combat the politics in politics, like some of the things you just mentioned, with they leaving your name off certain things, or certain people want to back certain people and bully other people out the way and all of that, or even the fact that you may not have as much money as some other candidates? How do you yourself combat all of those things?
Well, one thing is staying focused. I know the reason why I decided to qualify for U.S. Senate. It wasn't because I was forced out of my seat. As a matter of fact, I had no one that had qualified to run against me as a state representative. And when I qualified on the last day, almost 2 hours before the closing time, nobody had qualified to run against me. So it wasn't that I had to leave out of my seat because I thought I was going to lose. That wasn't the case. I set for my own self, when you talk about term limits, I self-imposed a term limit. And so I didn't want to stay in a place too long that I forget about my focus. And so when I decided to run for U.S. Senate, my focus was going to be still the same, is bringing the resources down to the people. Access and awareness are the two things that you have to have in order for your community to grow. We have so many communities that are disenfranchised, and we have other communities that are doing well. And so we have to figure out, how do you come to a medium point with those that are affluent areas, which is nothing wrong with that. But then you have other areas that are not affluent, and that causes an imbalance in the state. It's an imbalance in America, but I'm gonna talk about Georgia since that's where I'm running at. There's an imbalance in the state. And so you have to have someone that's going to be able to help balance that. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I have quite a few ideas. And then I know the things I don't know. That's one of the reasons I'm going to actually formulate a committee for people to be able to sit on the committee as an advisory committee in those different areas where they're the experts in, to be able to advise me on policies, and not necessarily sometimes policy, or where, hey, the particular department is not functioning at the capacity it could be. And so that's my job, to be the voice. That's what I've been doing as a state representative, being the voice of those who don't have a voice. And then those who have a voice, connecting with them to make it an even stronger voice. So you stay focused. That's how you're able to get through the politics. And it's not that it doesn't bother you, because we're human. It does, but when you're able to stay focused and know the purpose and the reason why you're running for a particular seat, and you know that you're there for a reason, you're there for a season, to make sure that the people are getting the resources that they need, so you can leave it better than when you found it.
Okay. So we know this is the last week prior to November 3rd, to the election. And for many, this is one of the most important elections out there. But for you in your campaign, what are some of the things you're going to be doing in this last week to bring this thing home for Team Stovall?
Well, I have several more interviews that I'll be on this week. Sharing my message, and then asking my supporters to share the message. It's nothing like word of mouth or someone else speaking for you. My dad always said, someone else can speak better for you than you can for yourself. And that's what some of the things that we've been working on and depending on in this election, because we know we are fighting against a powerhouse when it comes down to money and being able to get to people where we're not able to get to them. So we'll continue to put our message out there, continue to ask our supporters to continue to share it and talk with those friends and family members who have not voted yet. Yeah, there's a lot of people that voted, but still there's yet a lot of people who have not voted yet. And some people just like the thrill of going on November the 3rd to cast their ballot. And so those are the ones that we'll be focusing on up until, of course, October the 30th, which is Friday. It's the last day for early voting. And so if you have not gotten your vote in, you have to wait till November the 3rd.
Okay. So I was going to switch topics, but I kind of want to stay on this theme with the election, because that's the huge thing right now, the big hoopla. And I definitely wanted to touch bases on, some of the things that you were doing in your campaign. And I know we're both huge education proponents. And one of the things you want to do is to modernize education. What does that entail? What does that look like?
So education is the backbone of any economy. And it's the driver for what type of jobs, the quality of jobs that are going to come to a community and even to a state. And so when you have inequity in your education system, that means you're going to have inequity in economics and those companies that are going to come and decide to either expand or make Georgia their headquarters here. And so with that, you have to transform our education system. The way that we do assessments are not the best way that we do them. Our system right now is more adult focused centered than it is student centered. And
Okay.
so with that, transforming or modernizing our education system is having our education system where it is student-centered. The funding is student-centered. It's not driven by the adults or what they want to do, but what the needs are of the children. And when you're able to do that, then you will see the progress and what's needed. These children, you will see them doing better. Because it's now focused on them. One example I'll give you quickly is in one of the school systems, I think it was in Henry County, they did what was called individualized, customized learning, but it was like an IEP, but it's not an IEP.
Okay.
And so what they did was they took what the needs are of that particular student. They crafted a program for that child, and that child takes ownership on their computer, and they're given milestones and what they need to finish according to what areas they're strong in and what areas they're weak in. And what happens is that child now knows every morning, this is my assignment. I don't have to wait till the teacher prompts me to do what I need to do. Now, anytime doing that, I can stop and ask for assistance from the teacher if I'm having a difficulty. And then that also allows the teachers to not necessarily have to do so much differentiated education and instruction, because it's already done. That child already knows what they're supposed to be doing. And they can spend more time with the students that are not as advanced as they are. Another part when it come to modernizing the education system is that every high school student should graduate with a trade, certified trade. This allows them, him or her, to immediately go into the workforce. And if they decide they want to do 4-year college, they can continue on, but it also cuts down on student debt. The other important part with that certification and trade is that it can be done while they're in high school. We have many programs already, apprenticeship programs. They're not as prominent as they should be, but I will work as a U.S. Senator to make sure that those funds and resources are coming down to those apprenticeship type of programs that we have. And more support is given to dual enrollment, where students are able to go to high school and college at the same time with no cost to the parents. And so when you have students that are 18 years old, able to go right into the workforce at a higher level of pay, they're not going out in minimum wage, because their skill set is going to demand that they are paid at a higher rate. Then the whole argument about minimum wage increase, you don't have to have that argument anymore, because the kids are coming out already going to have to demand that they're getting paid higher. And so anytime that you have a demand, of course, the law of demand and supply, then that means those employers can offer $8, $7, $25, and $8 an hour. They're going to have to be up to $12 and $15 if they want those workers to come in there, or they're not going to be able to keep their business open. So those are kind of things. When it comes to higher ed, transforming our education system, many of our students that want to be independent students can't be, because of the age limit. I think it's 23. They have to be older than 23. And what happens is these students have to use their parents' income, but they've been living independently since they graduated from high school. And so it then makes the local college have to charge them out-of-state tuition, because if they don't use their parents' information, then they're forced into a whole nother category. And I've seen this happen a lot with the financial aid system. And that system is so antiquated that it needs to be changed. So those are just a few things when it comes down to modernizing our education system that I'll be focusing on.
Okay. I definitely like the idea about the high school students graduating with a trade, because I feel like that's something that's been a lost art with our schools. And I don't, as far as I remember, I don't think there are a whole lot of schools still doing it. So is that something you would want to implement, is to bring back those trade skills to the high schools as a as an elective, and it's something that they have to do in order to graduate with these skills?
Yes, it'll be a part of graduation requirements.
Okay.
So right now we do have, many schools do have vocational tech. It's not as prominent, and it's structured a little bit different than when we were in high school. So sometimes the adults now might say they took it out. It's still there. It's just not as prominent and as many as it used to be when we were in high school.
Okay.
You kind of knew that was there. So you have what's called college and career academies that are kind of have taken a place when it comes to vocational classes.
Okay.
But they're not. We don't have a college and career academy in every school district. We have in quite a few, but they're not in every school district. And so, working with the local Department of Education, the State Department of Education, and seeing how on the federal level we can be able to help support that. One thing is that, you know, with our technical colleges, they receive additional funding for specific groups. So they receive additional funding for training for veterans, single parents, foster kids, people that are in low income areas, and there's a couple of other categories. So since they're getting this federal funding, why not now look at how that funding can be better utilized for those students that fall up under those categories and their parents?
Okay.
Because more than likely the students fall, the parents are the first one that fall in the category. And then now
Right.
you have the students. And then you start taking away that generation of poverty because you're now touching the parent at the same time as what you're doing with the student. So they both can rise up. And many times with our programs that we've had across the state, they always focus on the children and left the parents behind.
Right.
So, but the parents have a strong influence when those children in their household. So if they're not motivated to do better and they just see the children do better, they're not going to push them as much as they should.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. So I support you fully on that. Another huge issue going on in schools right now is the issue of COVID and students going back to school for in-person learning. What are your thoughts on that? Was it a good idea? Was it a bad idea? Do you prefer the virtual? What are your thoughts?
I think that the students did go back too soon. There was not proper planning that was done, enough training to the administrators of these school districts and also to the teachers. You know, you have to think about it. Many of these teachers were not used to doing virtual learning with anything.
Correct.
You know, the ones that were charter schools that had virtual schools that were charter, they were okay. I mean, they weren't in such a disarray as the traditional school. So because they were already doing it. But about 90% of our school districts were not doing anything dealing with virtual learning, especially our the teachers in the lower grades as well. So now you have teachers thrown into a whole new arena that they've never been in, didn't have professional development to be able to tell them, okay, now you used to seeing your children in face-to-face. Now you got to look at them on the screen and they're going to have all kind of other distractions that you can't control. It's out of your control. Yeah. And so that's the whole professional development there on how do you keep your children engaged. And then how do you now continue to talk with the parents to keep them engaged?
Yeah. Uh-oh.
Did I freeze? Okay. Many have lost their jobs. Many of them are facing evictions. So there are a lot of things that are going on in that household that you still depending on those parents to make sure the students are paying attention in the classroom setting that the teacher has no control over. So my solution would have been, my recommendation would have been to make sure that before we let any child even start the virtual learning or in school, was making sure that the teachers were properly trained and they felt comfortable enough to be able to execute their learning or their lesson plans to the students. And then at the same time, making sure that the parents understand the importance and the reason why this is one of the options. Now, when it comes down to in-person learning at the schools, they don't have enough personal protection equipment to make sure that those ones that are going into the schools are going to be protected. Look how many we started with the football games, and then they had to stop them because the children were still contracting the disease. And so this is something new to all of us. And to me, it was taken too lightly. Was said they need to get back in school to learn. Okay, if they're in a disruptive environment, guess what? They're not learning whatever you thought that they were going to be learning in the first place.
Right.
So they might as well not even been doing virtual learning because they're not learning anything anywhere. But you want to be able to say, we've got the kids back in school. What's the difference if they're not learning? What's the difference if the
Right.
teachers are too stressed out because they're trying to get all these kids on one screen to make sure that they're paying attention, and they have their own families that they're having to tend with as well. So all those things I don't
Right.
think were taken into consideration. They could have been done a lot better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I spoke to a teacher over the weekend in Florida, and she told me that since they started school, the whole thing has been a mess. She said, like to your point, she said the teachers weren't properly trained. She said the students and all the distractions they have because they're at home, and all of these other uh, the lack of protection, like you just said. Some teachers have said they feel like they're putting their life at risk and their families' lives at risk to having to go into this school. And some of the protests I've seen, teachers are holding up signs like, "My students can't learn if I'm dead." Like that's pretty serious stuff to have on your mind, when you're going in as a teacher trying to teach, and even as a student, as a child trying to learn, and they expect these students to keep these masks on out there, especially the young ones. I could only imagine what kind of challenge that would represent. But I've heard a lot of bad things, and I've heard things from parents coming onto the Zooms
Right.
without clothes on, parents coming on the Zoom with illegal substances clearly present. Tragically, I heard a couple of weeks ago this young girl was in class and her mother got killed by her boyfriend in a domestic dispute while she's on a Zoom training. So, imagine her trauma and the trauma of those other children who witnessed this. So it's a lot of things that were poorly executed, I think, in trying to get the kids back in school early. And I think a lot of that push was, if we get the children back in school, then we can get the parents back to work and keep the economy flowing.
But I think that at some point you have to slow down and look at what's the most important. Even with the unemployment issue, most of the people that had to file those unemployment claims, that some of them have still not received their money.
Right.
Those people want to work. They don't want to sit at home and collect the unemployment check, because most of them probably get paid more than an unemployment check anyway.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, we're dealing with a virus that is unknown. Even the scientists don't know all the details about it. And so with that, there could have been other activities that were going on with the students while they were at home. You have, places like PBS. You had the Center for Puppetry Arts. You had all kind of other nonprofits that were operating, doing programs online. You could have had them doing that. You could have looked at our local recreation centers and seen how they could have been doing some other activities with the students without them even having to leave the house.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pre-planning that could have taken place, and I don't think they even asked the teachers, you all's thoughts of what you think should happen. And you all the experts, the teachers are the experts, and they could not, and many of them are very creative and able to think outside the box.
Correct. And Penny put a comment in here. Penny said, when you're planning to return to school involves a plan of action for death, it's not time to go back to the classroom.
No.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. There were teachers who didn't have wills, who were getting their wills done because they felt like they might die going into the classroom. And then Penny also mentioned there was a young lady, she got molested on her Zoom. She was an elementary student. She got molested by her cousin on the Zoom last week. Yes, ma'am. I read that last week. So that little girl, God bless her, and even the children who had to witness that, because they said it was like 7 or 8 other children on the Zoom when it happened. So there are so many outside forces that I know that teachers, the people planning this return to school didn't factor in, because how could you factor in stuff like that, domestic violence, death, or so a child gets
and then you even look at the mental health aspect of it. So that's why I said when you're thinking about it, some of those, these are experts, people that are experts, that are used to dealing with crisis management. And when you're used to dealing with crisis management, that's what you think about all day. You're not like you're a teacher. That's your expertise is crisis management.
Right.
So you would think about, okay, what effects would this have for the kids? What effects would it have for the teachers?
Yep.
What effects would it have for the parents? Okay, we need to make sure we have mental health counselors available to be able to check. We need to make sure the DFACS is on alert to make sure that since those children are having to be, enclosed for so long, that somebody need to be doing a wellness check with those children, because when they go into school, you physically able to see them, and if they don't come for a couple of days, you got the counselors calling to find out.
Right. It's a lot. It's a lot, and I hope things can get better soon and be resolved, and they can come up with a vaccine of some sort. But anywho, if you had to give a letter grade while we're on the topic of COVID, if you had to give a letter grade to our fine U.S. government on how they have handled the COVID pandemic, what would that grade be and why?
I would say it would be a C minus, maybe a D plus.
I'm still thinking that's high.
And the reason I said a D minus, C plus, is because there were some things put in place that I think did slow down the spread. And then I could say when it came to information, a lot of our we as state elected officials were getting information, probably not as much as we needed to, but we were able to get enough to be able to share with our constituents about what was going on. So that's why I would say a C plus, D minus, definitely not an F. I wouldn't say that they did a horrible job with it. So that would be my grade, because there were some things that I could say I think they did a good job on, while others I say they could have done a little bit better. And I do want to commend some of those local governments that really stepped up to help the small businesses by giving them loans, giving them access to fund so that they can be able to open back up. So I would, not all of them did it, but you had quite a few that did do that. And I think that was good, because if those businesses close down, that affects the economy for that local government. We already know that the collection of taxes are going to be down for next year, because those businesses have not been able to operate in the full capacity.
Okay. And as far as a vaccine for COVID, what are your thoughts on these rushed COVID trials that they're doing to try to come up with the vaccine, and will you be taking it?
Good question. So I am a very weary and leery of these rush with these vaccines. You're talking about a virus that is still unknown and it's changing all the time. As far as what they're seeing the results of how it's affecting people. I just saw something on TV yesterday where they were saying that having COVID, after that they had to check people's heart because it's now affecting their heart because of them having to be on their breathing machine.
Wow.
And everything. And so they might increase them having chances of a heart attack. So there are things that they're finding out as people are continuing to contract this disease. And so when you start saying rushing them for a vaccine, you hadn't even tested out properly, had enough time to test it out properly to make sure that those people that have agreed to it, that they're okay and that they've gone through the process just like you do with any other vaccine. Yeah. And will I be taking it? No, I have to know some more information, because it worries me when people rush into doing something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're trying to get rid of a set of people, and which is what some people have said. No, I don't trust the government. Yeah. It's a trust issue, because when you look at how it has been handled when it comes down to the coronavirus in certain communities, especially minority communities, they have not done the best job with making sure they know the pre-existing conditions that are there. They know a lot of people that lost their jobs. Majority of them are essential workers who, like I said, they hadn't even gotten their unemployment money. So they're facing eviction. You're facing your cars being repossessed. You can't pay your car insurance. So all of those things, and even these people that were working that was able to pay their health insurance, once they stopped working, they couldn't pay their health insurance. So then they become uninsured. So all of those things, just like I said, the trust factor in the government is at an all-time low for citizens and people that are living here. So you tell me you want me to test a vaccine that you don't put together, throw together in about 3 months or 4 months, when normally it takes a whole year?
A year and a
I
half.
don't think I want to be trying now. Whoever want to do it, God bless you. And if you survive, I still got to see some more people that have gone through their test.
Yeah, you sound like my mom. That's what my mom said. She was like, even once they start giving it out, I still need 6 months to a year to make sure that it works. And I mean, I am not on the vaccine train, so I know I won't be getting it. Anybody who's thinking about getting it, I got 2 words for you: Tuskegee experiment. And that goes back to the trust you were mentioning and the lack of trust that many minorities have towards the government. And I know for me, that's one of the biggest reasons. So, I don't think I'll be participating in that as well. But good luck. You do know that they had to shut down two of the trials last week, and 2 weeks ago, I believe it was. AstraZeneca was one, and the other one was Eli Lilly, one of whichever. Yeah. So they had to stop their trials because they had some unexpected outcomes, is what they said. But yet, it was 2 weeks ago, because I know they started back up last week. I've been seeing commercials where they're still asking for volunteers for the trial. The one commercial down in Florida was asking for 1 million volunteers. So I just wish everyone the best of luck. I wish the people trying to find the cure the best of luck. But just like you said earlier, do your research before you let people go shooting stuff into you, especially brand new stuff.
It's so much going on, like I said, and you don't know. You'll know what the ulterior motive is.
Right.
And because there's so much unknown with this virus, and the people that are giving out instructions, they'll say one thing this month, next month it changes. So that's why when you're looking at someone going into that U.S. Senate seat, you want someone that's going to be able to go in and kind of look at both sides. I don't have no loyalty to Republican. If they say we're going to need everybody to try the vaccine, I don't have no loyalty to the Democrats. They said, well, we need everybody to try the vaccine. Why y'all both want everybody to try the vaccine? That's what I'm going to be asking.
Right.
And what parameters, what things we put in place with safety measures to make sure that this is tried. And has it been tried on the animals yet first, before you start doing a human trial? Because that's what we do. That's how most things are done. They're tried out on the animals, and then they go into the human basis of it. So I think, it's going to be imperative that we do have a vaccine. And then we don't know if once someone catches it, does their body automatically make it immune, they're immune to it again for the second time? We don't know that. And so those are other things that the scientists who are the specialists are trying to try out. So in the meantime, I think us practicing, those masks, social distancing, and trying to limit as much as possible what we can do, but being creative at the same time, because of course we know that we have to start the economy back up. But I think it can be done in phases and not just rushed, all the way through to do it. The other thing I want to talk about briefly is about the small businesses. So because of small businesses, many of them are not going to be able to open back up because of what has happened with COVID. It hit them really bad. A lot of the restaurants and a lot of the personal service type of businesses have really taken a hard hit. So when you look at the small businesses, we have to have a program in place to be able to help those that were able to survive barely, to be able to now, what are their needs? Because you think about it, the small business, they have the owners who that's their income. Then you have the employees that work for the owners. They have an income. So two sets of people, the employees and the employers, were hit hard. And so that means that those are people that are living in our communities. So
Right.
that means our communities are hit hard. So I think having a strategy of how do we get our small business back up and running to the limit of capacity where they can, still looking at how we practice social distancing and all of that. And even those who are now no longer going to be able to reopen their business, how do we help them to create a new business? Because
Right.
now anytime there's a problem, there's always a solution. And entrepreneurs, that's what they specialize in, is finding solutions to problems. That's why businesses are created.
Right.
And so how do we do that? How do we now retrain those employees whose industry is probably not going to open back up again, but they need to be employed and working too. So those are things that we're going to have to definitely look at simultaneously while we're looking at how do we even move our education system forward.
Okay, thank you for that, ma'am. And so back to the politics, there's a pretty important presidential election coming up. And it's pretty important. Joe Biden even said this is an election for the battle of the soul of the country. So have you seen any of the debates? And if so, or if not, what are your thoughts on the candidates? And did you see anything from the debates that made you lean toward more than one side or the other? You don't have to say who you're voting for if you don't want.
Yes, I watched both sets of debates.
Okay.
I think that here in America, one good thing is that we have access to information.
Yes.
And when we have access to information, I go back to what I said earlier, we have to make sure we utilize the access to the information. So you can be able to fact check when you hear an presidential candidate saying one thing and the other say, well, you didn't do this. You've been in there 40 years. Why you didn't do it? And then the other said, well, you've been in there 3 years. Why you hadn't done it? Then you start wondering, well, both of y'all ain't done nothing. So, so you start having to add things up, and it's like you looking at both of them, and you said, okay, these are our choices. And then of course you had a third party candidate who they should have had on the stage as well, but they go back to what I talked about earlier, because she's not a part of the major party. She was not included, and that adds a mixture in there when it comes to that. So I wasn't impressed about neither one of the debates. And even with those debates, it's really hard to be able to determine with any debate the real character of the people.
Right. Yeah.
Because you think about it, they have questions that they don't tell you what the questions are before.
Yeah.
And then they give you a limited time to answer the question. And so that doesn't tell you, some people are not good at answering questions off the fly.
Right.
But if
you're right.
Interviewing with them, this is how you're able to tell the character of a candidate. Sitting down listening to those interviews where people are asking them some questions, they're able to explain, they're able to dialogue, and you're able to decide, from there. So I think with this whole election, it hasn't persuaded me either way to say, oh, okay, I want to vote for this person. Oh, yeah, I'm going to go out and vote for this person. I'm about almost saying I'm going to vote for the third party person. Because even though I didn't get a chance to hear, I had to look up some information about her and whoever in her second, in her running mate. I just think we need to do away with the whole party system. Let people run on the basis of who they are and not because of what party that they're a part of. And I think we'll start getting a lot better results with our communities of things that we see. Our economy would be a whole lot better because you don't have people pulling purse strings and people pulling them as if they're puppets, because that's what they are. Sometimes in the parties, they're puppets. Leadership said you better vote this way, you better vote that way. You look at even look at the debate. And when people were comparing what was going on between the debate, and you always gonna have the Republicans say their candidate did better, the Democrats gonna say our candidate did better, and the person Miller said neither one of them be excited about voting for. So of course you're gonna who side you on. So that's my take on the presidential debate.
Okay, thank you. We have about 5 minutes left, and I want to touch on this topic because this very important to me, is very important to our community. And so there's a huge kerfuffle going on right now with President Trump, Ice Cube, the Platinum Plan, and the contract with Black America. So Ice Cube has been working behind the scenes trying to get the Democrats or the Republicans behind his plan for Black America, which is called the contract with Black America. He presented it to both sides. The Democrats said, we'll get back to you after the election. Trump side met with him. That's how Trump came up with his Platinum Plan. And then it came out last week that Ice Cube was doing all of this behind the scenes. He hadn't consulted with any other organizations that wants to have a Black American agenda or anything like that. So now people are thinking that Ice Cube is some type of Trump puppet and all of this stuff. So I want to give you some of the points of the Platinum Plan, then I give you my question. Some of the main points of the Platinum Plan are to build up peaceful urban neighborhoods with the highest standards of policing, whatever that means. To bring fairness to the justice system, create a national clemency project to right wrongful prosecutions and to pardon individuals who have reformed their lives. They want to expand school choice, increase Black home ownership, bolster Black economic prosperity, prosecute the KKK and Antifa as terrorist organizations, make lynching a national hate crime, and the cherry on top, to make Juneteenth a federal national holiday. So what do you think about the Platinum Plan? And what do you think about, in general, the Democrats and the Republicans having some type of agenda for Black America?
Well, you could definitely see that Black America is going to be the determining factor when it comes down to this race,
Okay.
this presidential race. Because if not, you won't be hearing nobody talking about a Black plan for Black America, period. And it's definitely long overdue.
It is.
There are definitely key things that have to take place because of systemic racism. Those things that have been caused inequity over the years. One of them is education. So you can't have a plan if you don't address education.
Correct.
You can't have a plan. And when I say address education, I'm saying it should not be a one size fits all like our traditional school systems are. If you live in a certain zip code, you have to go to that school. Where the zip codes were structured inequitable anyway.
Yes,
Within the big
absolutely.
certain
Yes.
Black people moved in certain areas. You stayed on that side of the track. Then
Yep.
your quality schools were one way. You stayed on another side of the track. You had better quality. Why
Yep.
not let kids go to school wherever they want to go? The parents want them to go to. We shouldn't even have no borders of zip code, which is legislation I introduced as state
Right.
legislature 3 years straight. It didn't pass though, but because you had these mindsets that we want to stay in control. So you have to have restructuring of the education system. You have to also have the restructure of economics. You have to be able to provide for ways where if there are entrepreneurs that want to start their own business, they should have an easy pathway. All of this, you got to prove you're a minority. Why? I was born. Can't you see I'm a minority? Why I have to prove and give documents that I'm a minority and do a certification?
Right. Yeah.
Give us the resources that we need. Give us the land if we want to have home ownership. Give us the land that we have. It's enough land that was given away to immigrants when they came here to America. We're the only race that have not really been able to benefit from the hard labor, and sweat, and tears that our ancestors have put here in America. So should there be a plan? Definitely. Do I think that one plan is better than the other? No, I think there are some areas, and one that's good, it needs to be more specific. And then there are other areas where one is very specific and it could work. I commend Ice Cube for stepping out, taking his status as a celebrity and saying, I'm not for neither one of y'all. I'm for the Black people. And what I want to see, since the Black people are the integral part of this decision making for this election, I don't want to see either side taking advantage of the Black people like they have done in the past. And that's just a fact. Correct. And because if they done, we would have been a whole lot more, whether it was a Republican or whether it's a Democrat. the black race should be a whole lot further than where we are now. So I commend him for stepping out. And for those people that were saying, oh, he a Trump supporter, he this and that. What is wrong with having options? If the Democrats told you, which they should have never said, come back after the election, what kind of stuff is that? You have Democrats that are already elected in office that could do some of the things that he has in his plan. They could do some of the things that Joe Biden and Harris have in their plan. They can do that now. They don't need to wait till the president get elected.
Yeah.
So when he said, well, okay, y'all don't want to talk to me, I would have done the same thing, which I have done as a state representative. Oh, you don't want to listen to what I got to say? I'm going to go ahead and talk to the people who want to listen. And if they don't want to listen, I'm going to figure out another way to make sure what I want to get done gets done.
Yeah.
So I don't look at him either way as who is he supporting, and that's his business, whoever he want to support. And so the main purpose is he wants to get done that he's seen nobody else has been able to move the needle forward. And we should be supporting him on that. You're not going to agree with everything that everybody does. We're all humans. We have different perspectives of life. But you find some things that you can agree on. Like I said, the education, the economics, the healthcare, of course, the justice system. There are some things that have to be changed. And they don't need to be waiting till next year to change those bills. They are passing bills now. So this is the thing. If the Democratic Party is saying, well, we want to do, we want to have what's needed for the black people, then all those black elected officials that's up in Washington, D.C., then you all talk to the elected officials that's over on the Republican Party, and we'll see who's saying they want to do what. Put it out there and say, okay, here's the bill. Won't you go ahead and pass the Senate since y'all the majority in the Senate? The Republicans are majority in the Senate. Trump, you the president, so you can have you'll be able to sign it. Okay, in the House, we're gonna put it on here. This is what we're gonna have, and then they can come together. Ain't no reason for it to have to wait come somebody next year. I would have done the exact same thing he done. What, next year? Oh no, I'm not waiting. So that's my take on all everybody's plans.
Okay, and I agree. I think Ice Cube had the right intentions in his heart. I just think he went wrong with the lack of transparency, because when you don't have that transparency up front, then that leaves room for people to come up with all type of other theories as to why you're doing it.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you something, and this is from experience. He could have talked to all the black organizations he wanted to. They still would have found something wrong with that plan. And one thing about it, when people feel like that they got the power, and this is what this whole election is about, who has the power and control over these votes. And so these black organizations had plenty of time. They could have already put a plan out. They didn't have to wait till Ice Cube put something together. What they should have been doing is say, hey, this celebrity, actor, he's come up with a plan. You don't have to talk to all of them. Who said, where is it written that he got to talk to every black organization? Or every black person to do it? He don't. He got experience of his own when he done all the stuff that he's done. So I don't think it's so much about the transparency. It's all down is that you didn't come and ask me for permission for you to be able to do it. And because you didn't ask me for permission, I'm going to say that you are a Trump supporter. So everybody could be on the uproar. Those who are not educated when it comes down to how policy works and how this strategy works in politics, then they on the bandwagon with the Democrats say, oh, he's over there with Trump. Instead of them saying, well, why he had to come and ask y'all? Did he come and ask y'all when he got ready to make his boys in the hood, make his movie barbershop? He didn't come and ask y'all anything. When he made his music, did that diminish him and the artist who he is? No, it didn't.
Valid point. That's a very valid point. I like that. I like that, Representative Stovall. Last question. Penny wants to know about reparations. What are your thoughts on reparations and the U.S. government having to pay the descendants of American slaves reparations?
I think that reparation is different. Is different in different phases. I don't think necessarily a cash lump sum and that's it. I think there should be cash payments, but at the same time, you could give someone some money. It's just almost like I can give you the fishing rod, but if I don't teach you how to fish, then that means that in about a month or 2 weeks, that money is gone. You still in the same situation you were in before. You still up low income. You still in impoverished neighborhood. That didn't change.
Yeah.
But we gave you the money. But if you don't, so it comes with it with training and being able to, for those who want it, you provide it. Those who just say, just get my money, I'm gonna go on about my business. You're gonna have those too.
Yeah.
You're not gonna change the mindset. It's gonna
Right.
take a change of mindset. That's when you have all the organization, everybody working together, because each organization has a certain specialty that they specialize in.
Right.
And let them work in your area that you specialize in. Don't get out your lane to go in somebody else's lane doing something that's not your specialty.
Right.
But we can all work together. Yes, there should be reparations in education, and it can start by dismantling this old antiquated system to allow for equal access and equal resources across the board. It should not be school districts are funded according to income levels or taxes, because you have some areas that are going to always have more taxes that they collected than the other. Dismantle the whole thing and equally fund across the board, and let parents decide on where they want their child to go to school. And it should not be discriminatory on where they want. Provide the resources, because when that child ages out at 18, they're going to become a part of our society, whether they're ready or they're not. And that's why we need to make sure with education. Same thing with entrepreneurship and economics. You have some people that are going to always be employees. They're going to always, they can't work for themselves. They want to work for somebody else. That's okay. And those who want to be employers, we make sure that we sustain them and give them the support so they can be good employers to those who want to be employees. And this is in our community. Healthcare. We have too many women that are dying because of issues with childbirth related issues. They're 3 to 4 times Black women are dying faster than any other race. And so with that, we have to make sure we starting with healthcare and wellness at an early age. All those things can be done when we're specifically saying we're going to target these in our communities. So all of that is what I consider reparations as a whole total package. One other thing I wanted to say is that, and I know we're getting ready to close out.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that when elected as the next U.S. Senator, I would definitely be making history as the first African-American woman to be elected as a senator from Georgia. We've never had a Black woman to serve as senator from Georgia. And many people say, why is that important? It's because we need to have a seat at the decision-making table. We'll just need a seat. And I'll quote something that Shirley Chisholm, Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't have a seat for you, you bring your folding chair. And so that's what we have to do, because our voices need to be heard. These issues we're talking about reparations, if you're not a person of color, you're not going to understand how important that is to have reparations. And you have to have a voice that fits the face to be able to talk up for those issues that definitely affect our community. That don't affect the other community. It's not saying I don't care about the other community. I do. But some things y'all already got. And some things we don't have. So if we want to say have equal access, let's make sure. But you won't know that because you can't hear my voice, because there's only one Black woman that's up there in the U.S. Senate right now. There are 2 Black men that are in the Senate right now. But that's it. And so I will be the third to ever serve as U.S. Senator as a Black woman in the United States history. We've only had one other. The first one was Carol Mosley Braun, and she served from 93 to 99.
Okay.
It took 17 years later for Kamala Harris to be elected as senator. Are we going to wait another 17 years?
No.
Okay.
No, ma'am. We are not. Look, I got to give you a slow clap on that one. That was, look, there you have it, everybody. Passion, powerful, the people's elected official, Stovall, that's all. Thank you for being here, ma'am. Thank you for what you do in the community. Like I said, I've seen you in the white community, the Black community, the Latino community. I've seen you down at the Capitol working. Like, you really get it in and you really care about the people in the community. So I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. I wish you the best of luck or blessings, whatever you want to say in your race for next week. Valencia Stovall for U.S. Senate. Make sure you vote. She got my vote today. Make sure you get out and vote, everybody. It is important. It is your right. Ancestors died for you to have the right to vote. So please get out and make your voice be heard. Next time I talk to you, Ms. Stovall, I hope to say U.S. Senator.
Exactly.
Ms. Stovall.
Yes.
And I hope I could be part of that, making that history happen.
Yes.
God bless you,
You've
man.
already done that with your votes, and so many of my other supporters have already voted. They've already made a part of history already. And so go to my website, gostovall.com, to find out more information. Definitely make your donations. We're still accepting donations. There's still work to be done to get the word out. And I appreciate you, Vincent, for being a fighter for education and being open when it comes down to those options with education. And definitely WCEG Talk Radio. I'm looking forward to coming back on my show with issues and answers after the election. Well, I guess it'd be first of the year, maybe, or December.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. Before we go, we have to do our Scholar of the Week. And my Scholar of the Week today goes to Mr. Caleb Anderson. Caleb Anderson is a 12-year-old young man out of Marietta, Georgia, so he is a local. And he will be going to Georgia Tech in this fall at 12 years old.
Wow.
Let's see some of his highlights. Caleb began mimicking speech at 4 weeks old. By the age of 2, he could read the entire Constitution.
Wow.
I'm 46 and I ain't never read the Constitution, so I think that is totally impressive. Age 3, he was accepted into Mensa. That's one of those super smart child prodigy organizations. So at age 3, he did that. And he is set to make history, like I said, this fall by studying aerospace engineering at Georgia Tech. He graduated from high school at age 11 and started classes at Chattahoochee Tech, and then transferred to Georgia Tech. He is fluent in English, Spanish, French, and Mandarin. That is amazing.
Wow.
And I love this quote that he gave. He said, "I'm not smart. I just grasp information quickly." Shout out to Caleb Anderson for being my Scholar of the Week. And guess what, Caleb? That makes you very, very super smart. So thank you to my very special guest, Representative Valencia Stovall, soon to be U.S. Senator Valencia Stovall. Thank you again. And thank you to my producer, Penny. And thank you to the listening audience for being here and continuing to support us. I was going to say week in and week out, but month in and month out now during the pandemic. Hopefully this will all be soon that we can get back to our lives. Thank you. Thank you all very much, Valencia. Thank you. Peace and blessings. Y'all have a great day.